think I'm on. There we go. Okay. Well, it's 9 o'clock and we're all ready to go. So let's get started. I'd like to call this Saturday, June 25th meeting of the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners to order. Commissioner Almberg, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Missy, will you call the roll of the commission, please?
Chairwoman East,
Here.
Vice Chair Cavilion,
Here.
Commissioner Almberg,
Here.
Commissioner Barnes,
Here.
Commissioner Keel,
Here.
Commissioner McNinch,
Here.
Commissioner Perini,
Here.
Commissioner Rogers,
Here.
Commissioner Wise. Here.
Thank you. And could we have the county advisory boards to manage wildlife please stand and introduce yourselves?
Paul Dixon, Clark, Riverside, Douglas, Jim Cooney, Elko, Larry Pesky, Pioneer County, Michael Gerard, Humboldt, Joe Krim, Pershing.
Thank you. All right, agenda item number 20 is approval of the agenda, Chairwoman East, for possible action. The commission will review the agenda and may take action to approve the agenda. The commission may remove items from the agenda, continue items for consideration, or take items out of order. I'd like to ask the commission if we could move item number 25 under 21, and that's the Kirch Award presentation. Other than that, I have no other changes to the agenda. Anyone else have changes? Secretary Walsley, we're good? Okay. All right, seeing none, this is an action item and we'll take it out for public comment here in Elko. I don't see any on Zoom. Missy? No. Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for approval of the agenda with the noted change. Commissioner Rogers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'd like to make a motion for approval of the agenda with the one noted change of agenda item 25 under item 21.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? I have a second from Vice Chair Cavilla. So we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda with noted changes. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Agenda item 21, member items, announcements, and correspondence. Chairwoman East, informational. Commissioners may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on a future commission agenda. The commission will review and may discuss correspondence sent or received by the commission since the last regular meeting and may provide copies for the exhibit file. Commissioners may provide hard copies of their correspondence for the written record. Correspondence sent or received by Secretary Walsley may also be discussed. I have nothing. How about you guys? No? Okay, Secretary Walsley.
Thank you. Do not have any correspondence per se, but I do have a couple announcements. So I'd like to move to the center podium, if I might, to make those.
Okay.
So there's two things that I'd really like to do here. The first one, COVID presented a significant number of challenges, one of which was kind of a appropriate and proper send off for employees that were moving into retirement. And although this individual that's here with us today had no idea I was going to do this, I did want to just acknowledge Maureen Hollinger, and with a 30+ year history with the department, having seen so much change, so many ups, so many downs, seeing us through the change in vendor. And Maureen, this agency was her family and she was our family, and it was in her heart. And I don't know if many of you continue or I don't know if many of you monitor some of the social media around related to what we do and who we are. But Maureen hasn't stopped working. She just isn't coming to the office. She's online, engaged with individuals, constantly trying to educate and inform and achieve broader awareness and appreciation for how the system works. And she, despite having 30 years with the agency, upon her departure, she maintains a level of patience and professionalism as she interacts with individuals that are filled with vitriol, and a lot of that's aimed at her in her attempts to help them through their understanding of the process. So saw this as a really great opportunity to acknowledge her career with the department. I know she had no idea. She's not here for that. She's here for unselfish and heartfelt participation in something totally unrelated. So I just wanted to say thank you, Maureen, and acknowledge her continued service to the department, and just give her a quick round of applause.
You
Thank
didn't
you,
see
Maureen.
her face back there, but she was very surprised.
In a similar fashion, this is a bittersweet meeting, because this is the meeting where we have potentially commissioners that are going off the commission. They're terming out, if you will, and this meeting will be Commissioner John Almberg's last commission meeting after six years, two terms. And I didn't know Commissioner Almberg at all in any way, shape, or form when he was initially appointed. It was a complete unknown wild card for me as director and secretary of the commission. And I quickly learned a couple things, and I just want to share some of those observations. And Commissioner Almberg didn't to this day doesn't talk a lot, but when he does, it's kind of like E.F. Hutton, people listen. When he decides it's time to weigh in on an issue, it's usually with great insight, great purpose, and very thoughtful, meaningful input. And Commissioner Almberg has served on this commission through a number of controversial issues around technology, issues around shed hunting, killing contests, a whole host of things. And if there's one thing that I can say, that with your appointments comes a great opportunity and a great privilege to forever affect change for conservation in Nevada. But similarly, sitting on the commission can also provide a great opportunity for examination of your own purposes, and it can equally and profoundly change you. And I just want to thank Commissioner Almberg for an indelible imprint on conservation, whether it was as recently as yesterday and looking at the Blue Diamond purchase and securing open lands and working lands and the Success Loop, or some of the more controversial social issues. There was one thing that I always knew that Commissioner Almberg would do, and that was stand in his purpose, despite whatever fallout may occur. He came to this commission with great clarity in what that purpose was. Purpose of conservation, purpose of sustaining, maintaining those traditions and heritage that are so important to him and his family. And sometimes there's disagreement in the best way to secure the future of those things. But there was never any question as to Commissioner Almberg's purpose. And I can't thank you enough for the unselfish service to the state of Nevada, to its wildlife and wild places. And I'd like to give you a couple plaques to commemorate your time. You can sit there, I'll hold them up and read them and bring them to you. I know the spotlight is not comfortable for you, so I'll read this very slowly. This plaque says the Nevada Department of Wildlife proudly recognizes and honors Commissioner John Almberg for 6 years of dedicated service to the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners and for his many contributions for the betterment of the wildlife resources of the state of Nevada. Then it has your terms of service presented to Commissioner John Almberg, June 2022 by the Nevada Department of Wildlife. But as they say on late night TV, but there's more. And this is a little bit more heartfelt expression of our gratitude to you. And Sonia did not have anything to do with these photos. And I'll show the audience behind you and read what this says. The Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners recognizes John Almberg with appreciation of your efforts to create, enhance, and conserve special places. Many thanks for all you do for Nevada and its wildlife commission service states. And there's a couple photos of people and places that are near and dear to you. So I won't be so cruel as to ask you to share any thoughts, but I would like to provide that opportunity to your peers and give the meeting back to the chair. Thank you, Commissioner Almberg.
I'm a blubbering mess up here.
It's been a very fun experience for me, and I appreciate each and every one.
Oh, wow, thanks. It's been our privilege, and it couldn't come from a more humble person, in my opinion, but I'm going to take a moment. Does anyone want to offer any comments? Commissioner Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. John and I came on the commission the same time. And but John, I always really appreciated your viewpoint. And Tony said so much of kind of what I wanted to say, so I'm not going to go there, but it's been an honor and a privilege to have served with you, and I appreciated you and your viewpoints, and so thanks.
Anyone else? Commissioner Perini.
Yes, thank you. You know, John, I really appreciate you very much, and your wife right over here. We had the time to go in their house, and we learned a lot, what you had told for us and what we can do. And you know what? I called you a few times also. And when you start this program, when you started that in 2 years, it took a long time to understand all the stuff that goes on. And what you allowed us to do was to do the right things. But we want to learn about it. We want to understand that. And who do we go to? You, John. And I just want to thank you again. I really appreciated your time. And I think that you're a great guy. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Commissioner Keel.
Yeah, I'd just like to share and echo some of the same sentiments we've heard before. You know, I just reflect there's not many perks that come with being on this commission, but one of them is being able to interact with men and women of such high character as John. And I think you guys touched on it too. What resonates with me is, you know, the humility that he's shown, especially when we've been out on some of the projects working with the department staff and capturing sheep and doing some of the other things. That really is something really valuable to me, and thank you, and can't respect you enough. So thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Normally I have to wait for Tiffany to bail me out, but yeah, John, Tony really does say it all. I mean, I appreciate that Tony's able to say the things that need to be said, and I echo a lot of his comments. And I don't know how you could get more humble up here, but I really appreciate you sharing your family with us. And I know you're very much looking forward, grandpa in training. I don't think you're in training. I think you're born. I think it's natural. And I can tell you, and I hope that there are people that are online that will take the time to share with you what they've shared with me. The people that have come in with very different opinions, a lot of energy, their own convictions, and they've shared a lot of real kind thoughts about you with me. And so I know that people, even in disagreement, have a tremendous level of respect for you. And so do I. So thanks.
Vice Chair Cavilla.
I think everybody's kind of summed it up. It's been an honor to sit up here with you, and sometimes it is a daunting task. So, but I have enjoyed it. So enjoy your time at the Ponderosa.
Commissioner Rogers.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. No, likewise, I just wanted to, John, thank you so very much. As a new commissioner coming on board, as all of us have experienced, it's jumping in the deep end of the pool and drinking from a fire hydrant for a while. So your graciousness with myself and your knowledge and your wisdom it means a ton to me, and I can't thank you enough for what you've done for me personally, as well as this body. So thank you, John.
Okay, I'm going to try and get through this without messing myself up. I'm not going to look at you. First, I want to thank Sonia because you are the 10th member of our commission, and we appreciate you just as much as we appreciate your amazing husband. So thank you so much for always being here, for being such a bright light with all of us. It's just, and our friendship, our sisterhood is really special to me. So even though John didn't sit in this seat or Tommy's seat as vice chair, his leadership on this commission is just unparalleled. He has been thoughtful, and everyone's said a lot of this already, but so thoughtful and methodical. And when I've needed some guidance, I've called John and we've had long conversations. And I just really, really appreciate all that you've offered to me and my family. You're so generous with your Ponderosa. I didn't realize that until Tommy said it the other day. But your friendship means more to me than I can ever tell you. And our families have become friends, and it's just a really, really beautiful thing. But, you know, we've had long conversations, and I think you are such an amazing person, and your commitment and dedication to this body, but also to conservation. You know, every day you live what you speak. And I think that is such just an honorable thing for us to see and learn from. So I want to thank you. And just because you're leaving here doesn't mean you're leaving all of us. A piece of you lives within all of us. So I want to thank you. Does anyone else have anything they would like to offer? No? Would we like to get some photos? I know John's daughter is here. Can we take a moment and do that? Okay. That'd be great. Okay, we're going to take a little break. Let us all gather and we'll take some photos. Okay, we'll come back in a minute.
Every time I saw him. Every time I ask him every time.
I just wish people would get voice. Talk about it. I'll tell you what they are. You know, but sound angry. I can tell you, I've had so many of them call me up and tell me, gee, and I wish that they would get up to say something.
Oh, watch your thing.
Hey, Jeff. That's it.
Take pictures of Virginia. That way they'll know that it's official. Say, this image did that. You see, we can make her shake. She's taking a picture. Come on. She can't claim her phone crashed.
Yes, we're all doing this. All right. We might have to push these out a little further.
I was a mess this morning.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for indulging us in that moment. Anything else, Secretary Wasley, under 21? Okay, thank you. So we're going to move to agenda item number 25, which is our Wayne E. Kirch Award presentation. And this is also a very special one as well. So agenda item 25, Wayne E. Kirch 2022 Award Presentation, Chairwoman East Informational. Chairwoman East will present the 2022 Wayne E. Kirch Award that acknowledges a deserving individual, nonprofit organization, outdoor sports club, or business who have achieved significant results toward the conservation, management, or enhancement of wildlife in the state of Nevada during the last calendar year. And so I'm going to read a little quip about our recipient this year. For the 2021 Wayne E. Kirch Nevada Wildlife Conservation Award, the commission would like to honor the late Ron Lurie of Las Vegas. Ron spent the majority of his life in service to his community in many different ways, and he had a specific passion for Nevada's wildlife. Ron donated countless hours to projects that supported the things he loved, especially bighorn sheep. He served as a board member and vice chair of the fraternity of the Nevada Desert Bighorn Sheep and was a valuable member of the Nevada Bighorns Unlimited. I added Nevada to fraternity, sorry. Fraternity of Desert Bighorn Sheep and was a valuable member of the Nevada Bighorns Unlimited. Ron served Nevada's wildlife as a commissioner on the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commission, in addition to devoting his time to Las Vegas Woods and Waters, Wildlife and Habitat Improvement of Nevada, and Meadow Valley Wildlife Unlimited. Ron was a hands-on conservationist, assisting with guzzler builds, sheep translocations, and habitat improvement projects. In addition to his time, he made significant and consistent financial contributions to several conservation organizations previously mentioned throughout his lifetime. Ron passed in December of 2020, but his legacy as a wildlife conservation advocate and financial supporter of all wildlife conservation causes will live on. The commission is honored to give Ron Lurie the Wayne E. Kirch Nevada Wildlife Conservation Award. And I'd like to ask Brett Jefferson, who's a past Kirch recipient, and Paul Dixon up to accept the award on behalf of Ron's family and friends.
This is heavy. Guys, for nominating Ron. You bet. Want to say something? Okay, I thought you might.
I guess I'll face the commission, but Brett's here. Brett asked me this morning if I had prepared remarks, and the answer is no, but I will say that in 2008, I met Ron Lurie at 24-Hour Fitness with Mike McBeth, a former commissioner. At the time, Mike was on the advisory board for Clark, and they asked me if I wanted to get on an advisory board. And that started a long friendship. And the reason why you guys see me here today is because of Ron Lurie and Mike McBeth. And really, from that point forward, I spent a lot of time with Ron, whose wife passed away that same year that I came into his life. And so I kind of adopted him as my second father. And as a second father, he and I did a lot of hunting trips. And if you drive from Vegas to anywhere in northern Nevada, you're in the truck with somebody for multiple hours. And as you guys know, I love to talk. That's why none of the commissioners would ride up with me to this meeting. And I just learned a lot about him. And I think being introduced to all of the things that he was passionate about with wildlife. And I didn't realize it till you go to any of the banquets that we went to. And every banquet I went to with him, he'd buy 2 tables. I go, can I supply something? Can I do something? No, that's just what he did. He'd buy 2 tables. And he always had $1,000 or more that he would go for one of the live auctions because he had to buy either one of the knives. And from my perspective, I made him a shadow box, and I inherited that back when he passed with all the knives that he bought at the different events. And when I added up how much any dollars are in the knives that he just bought at like Win and Fraternity and stuff, it's over $5,000 that he spent on these knives that sit in a shadow box. So it's very, very cool. And it's an honor, but you'll have to blame him for having me for the last 14 years because it is his fault that I'm here and I love doing this. You want to say anything, Brett?
Oh, just real quickly, Ron, he has a history of leading from behind. And this is one of the first times he leads from the front.
And I'd like to end with the fact that I did talk with Ron's family, both his daughter and his son, and they felt very strongly that they said, well, you should just accept the award and keep it for yourself. And I thought that seemed a little bit selfish on my part. And so I will take this award and I will bring it to the Pepper Lane facility and I will donate it to the Ron Lurie conference room, and it will hang in there with his mounts and other memorabilia that Ron left that I donated to the Department of Wildlife. And so everybody will get to see this award and realize what he did and continues to do by instilling many of us sitting here that we carry on his legacy. And I want to try to do as good as he did, except I don't have quite as deep a pockets, but I'm working it. So thank you.
Thanks, guys. We can give you a moment for some photos.
Can we get up here? We'll have
Sure.
Chairwoman stand.
Oh. Well, I'm just as tall as you are standing up here.
She ends up about the same height.
All right, thanks, guys. You bet. Okay. Yes, of course. I didn't even ask anyone.
No,
but
that's
yes.
fine. So I had the privilege of serving with Ron, and Brett, you nailed it. He did lead from the back. And it's such a unique ability for somebody to be able to do that. That's not an easy thing to do. And even before he came onto the commission, he didn't guide the commission in a particular direction or dictate decisions or anything like that. What he did was he kind of managed people's personalities. He was a master at it. And he really did temper conversations, the pace, of things, because at that time there was a lot of energy on this commission, and he really did, Brett. And I really appreciate that comment because it's so true. It's so him, and I'm really appreciate you guys honoring him this way.
Anyone else? No, I didn't know Ron, but through the nomination and just talking with Paul over the last couple of months, it's been an honor for me to get to know him just a little bit. So thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll move on to agenda item 22, the county advisory boards to manage wildlife member items. Informational, CAB members may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the commission. Any item requiring commission action will be scheduled on a future commission agenda. Do we have any CAB items? Okay, come on up.
Good morning, everybody. Michael Gerard, Humboldt County. We would just like, there's some of us on our cab that would like to still get the packets hard mailed to us, please. Some of us don't have access to computers or printers or laptops, and we refuse to try to have a meeting looking at our phone and try to read stuff off of a phone. It's ridiculous. So if we could get those, that would be fantastic.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you. Mhm. Any other CAB items? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to agenda item number 23. Commission General Regulations for possible action adoption, public comment allowed. 23A is Commission General Regulation 501 NAC 502.385 tag transfer. Management Analyst Megan Manfredi for possible action. The commission will consider adopting Nevada Administrative Code NAC 502.385 that would allow the transfer of a big game tag to a nonprofit organization and determine the status of the tag if the department is notified of the tag holder's death. This regulation was created after the passage of Assembly Bill 89 of the 81st legislative session.
Thank you, Chairwoman, members of the commission, management analyst Megan Manfredi for the record. As the chairwoman stated, this regulation you see before you is a result of Assembly Bill 89, which came out of the state's 81st legislative session that was held in 2021. It establishes a program where tags can be transferred to a qualifying organization who would facilitate that tag being awarded to a person with a life-threatening medical condition or a youth 16 years or younger whose household income is at the designated level signifying poverty. This bill also allows for a big game tag to be transferred to another individual upon the death of a tag holder. Included in this regulation is the change adding number 6 to section 2, subsection 2, referring to the subsection that treats both the original tag holder and the recipient of the tag transfer as if both individuals were successfully awarded the tag in respect to bonus point cost and applicable waiting periods, as noted in the May meeting. And with that, I will give the floor back to commission for discussion or questions.
Okay, do we have any questions for Ms. Manfredi? No? You have something, Deputy Director Rob? Okay.
Jack Robb for the record. In that same Assembly Bill 89, one of the major points that was in there was a deferral of tag for somebody that had a catastrophic life-changing event after drawing the tag before getting into the field. When we were in Yerington a few years back, there is a deferral process, but that deferral process, as a result of that regulation, narrowed it down that they had to get hurt after the last moment that they could return a tag. So after 5 o'clock on a Friday and before the opening day of the season, if the season, or it could be, if it was a Tuesday, the event had to happen before, after 5 o'clock on Monday and before legal shooting hours on Tuesday. So that deferral process didn't work. We've had multiple situations come up prior with a young fireman that got burnt over. All kinds of things were the nexus of why we wanted to be able to defer a tag to the next season. With this regulation in front of you today, there is an ability to make a small change in language to open that deferral beyond that very narrow scope that I speak of. Currently, yesterday morning, I got a text that we have a Heritage Auction tag holder that spent $175,000 on a sheep tag that was in a wreck and has major injuries that are not going to allow him to get in the field. His tag starts July 1. So if we had the deferral process like we had wanted when we went through the legislative process and not such a narrow window, we would be able to defer that tag or we could transfer that tag. We don't have that ability right now. I could go through multiple others of people with big family events, brain tumors, catastrophic car wrecks, heart attacks, other things that we've dealt with. And the commission and the general public conversation during the commission meeting we had in Yerington was about a few people gaming the system. That is Tony and I's and the department's job to make sure people don't game the system. Allow us the tools to look and take care of people in a way that we want to take care of them. We're going to do everything we can to not have those 2-3 people game the system. But I think we owe it to the others to treat them fairly. And by excluding the people that may game the system, we've really taken away an opportunity from people that really deserve that opportunity, have earned that opportunity through bonus points and applications and draws. So I hope that you guys will consider expanding that period beyond the last day before the hunt, and make it pretty much from the day they draw the tag to the hunt. If they have some instance, and Tony and I will review them all, everybody that gets a deferred tag, we will bring those instances in front of the commission so you know why that tag was deferred. We will not bring the names forward so we can keep some anonymity and who and what, but we will tell you the situations of why those tags were deferred and what tags were deferred. It'll be a very tight process, but we need some more tools because we need to treat our customers in a better way than we currently are.
Okay, so do you have a suggested change for us?
That's why Megan's here.
Okay, thanks.
So the suggested change that Deputy Director Rob is suggesting is in the new subsection 4 in the language that you see. So it is not included in your support materials.
Okay.
But what, if the commission approves this change, what would happen is that we would take out the sentence that says after the last day after the last day that the holder is entitled to return the tag pursuant to NAC 502.422, but so so it would read, we would still keep the pursuant to NAC 502.422 in there, but it would read, except as otherwise provided in new subsection 8, the department shall allow the holder of a tag to return the tag to the department pursuant to NAC 502.422 for the restoration of any bonus points that he or she used to obtain the tag, or defer the use of the tag to the next applicable hunting season if any of the following extenuating circumstances occur before the hunting hours begin the opening day of the season for which the tag was issued. So there is like a half of a sentence that we would be removing. And then we're moving the pursuant part into like earlier in that sentence.
Up above, okay.
So hopefully that made sense and I could reread it if you need.
Yeah, it sounds like we need you to reread it. Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner McNeil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it would be helpful if you could read it. And I don't know, I would like to make some notes as you go along. So if you could just kind of
Go
putz
slow.
along a little bit. So,
Absolutely.
because I don't know what it means for purposes of a
Right.
motion eventually. So,
Yeah,
Okay.
agreed. Okay.
So starting with the new subsection 4, except as otherwise provided in new subsection 8, the department shall allow the holder of a tag to return the tag to the department. This is a new section that would be a part of the change pursuant to NAC 502.422. Continuing, for the restoration of any bonus points that he or she used to obtain the tag, or defer the use of the tag to the next applicable hunting season if any of the following extenuating circumstances occur. And here's where part of that sentence would be struck out. So after the last day that the holder is entitled to return the tag pursuant to that NAC, but would all be strucken out. And then it would continue before the hunting hours begin on the opening day of the season for which the tag was issued.
Okay. Did you get that? Okay. Everyone clear? Okay. All right. Looks like we're all good. Yes, Vice Chair Cavilion.
I just think just to be transparent, and I'm going to recuse myself from this because the gentleman that Jack brought up with the heritage tag, I am associated with that. So I just don't feel like I should, be involved in this one.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. That's fine. Anyone else have thoughts or questions for Ms. Manfredi? Yes, Commissioner Alberg.
Yeah, I'm definitely good with going back with the intent of the regulation fully, including even a step before the legislature going back when we were part of was a mentor tag program, and part of White Pines CAB that was really promoting the mentor portion of this. They still want to, try to pursue getting the ability to transfer your tag to your to transfer your tag to your children or grandchild or in some fashion, but there was more towards a regular mentor program. So I'm good with going back to the original intent.
Okay, Commissioner Keel, did you have? Yeah.
Yeah, and I fully support Commissioner Almberg's comments as well. I was curious though, on what we do today, does that rectify the situation with the heritage tag holder, or does it have to go back to LCB, Jack?
Jack Raw for the record. I think if you guys act today, it does need to go back and get approved by Ledge Council Bureau. But I think if you guys take action today, the situation occurred before the first day of the season. Had it happened after the first day of the season, I think you would have our hands tied. This situation happened before, and this is full transparency. I think everything's on the table right now. I think we can get there.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Weiss.
I appreciate this change. I was kind of curious about this in the first place, so I'm glad you brought it up already and right away. But I have a question about from the first day of the season, if you haven't gone out, and then say are the unfortunate get in a car accident or have a heart attack after the first day of the season, but before your planned hunt, is there any accommodation for that? Is that excluded? Is that point, are they out of luck? What's the deal there?
At the moment, if shooting hours occur on the tag season, as it's written, it's out of luck because we cannot determine if it was or was not utilized. And so that was the conversation for the commission before, and that's also in other regulations where it says the tag, if is to be returned, needs to be returned to the department before legal shooting hours of the day of the season. So if that's a change, that's a whole new regulation. We would need to really look at, if you want to change that portion, would really need to look at it, and it wouldn't be able to be done today.
I got you. I appreciate the clarification.
All right, thanks. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Bobcat.
Tony and Jack just brought this issue up to me in the last day, and I gave him some options in terms of the gentleman who's encountered with this difficulty of a very handsomely earned heritage auction tag. My recommendation, and I think Jack and Tony are fully on board with this, would be to come back to you and actually ask for you to specifically recognize the authority for this individual to defer the tag. That way it's transparent, it's clear, and you all have the authority to do so. I don't think you changing this regulation now is going to accomplish that. I just want to be clear to the department and to the commission that I think you have to come back on a separately agendized item and approve that, which I obviously would recommend, but that's up to you.
Okay.
I just wanted to be clear about that.
Okay, thank you, Bobcat. All right, anybody else have questions, comments? Okay, it's an action item, so we'll go out for public comment here in Elko. Do we have any public comment in Elko? I don't see anyone on Zoom, Missy? No? Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion to approve or deny? Change? Anyone? Commissioner Keel?
Sorry. Yeah, I would like to move to adopt Commission General Regulation 501, NAC 502, 385 tag transfer as presented with the noted changes to subsection 4 as we discussed today.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, I've got a second from Commissioner Olmberg. So we have a motion and by Commissioner Keel and a second by Commissioner Olmberg to approve Commission General Regulation 501 NAC 502.385 tag transfer with the noted change in subsection 4. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, motion passes 8-1 with Vice Chair Cavilla abstaining. All right. We move on to 23B, Commission General Regulation 505, NAC 502.4215, first come, first serve, prevention of unfair advantages. Management Analyst Megan Manfredi for possible action. The commission will consider adopting NAC 502.4215 that would allow for the suspension of a person from the first come, first serve program for attempting to create an unfair advantage to obtain a big game tag.
Thank you again, Chairwoman, members of the commission, management analyst Megan Manfredi for the record. The proposed regulation change establishes restrictions to the first come, first serve program for any individual attempting to create an unfair advantage for themselves or take advantage of the program. This language is similar to language approved in January's meeting out of the Big Game Tag Application Eligibility and Tag Limits Commission Regulation 2202. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Okay, any questions for tag or first come, first serve? No. Okay. We'll go out for public comment here in Elko. Any public comment on first come, first serve?
Craig Burnside, Douglas. If you guys saw the minutes from our CAB meeting, we voted to recommend that you approve this regulation only if the penalty for first-time violators were increased. Just saying that they can't participate in the rest of that is just a slap. I think there needs to be more of a deterrent. I think first-time violators should be ineligible for the draw for 2 or 3 years. And then after that, if they're caught again, it's forever. But we thought that there really should be more of a deterrent to keep people from even attempting to do it up front.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Come on up.
Michael Gerard, Humboldt. I just had a question. How are you going to know if somebody's doing this? I mean, you guys have somebody that's real smart with software that can figure this out, or how? Because I talk to people from all over the globe with what I do that are looking for tags. And I talked to a guy last year, and he literally told me he built. I don't even know. I don't know anything about computers. I can barely turn them on. So so pardon my ignorance on that. So anyways, he said he built something that when one of those tags would hit, it would grab it and put it in his cart until he could look at it, see if he wanted it or not. So how are you guys going to build software that's going to be able to deter this is my question. And who are you going to get to do it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gerard. Any other comments here in Elko? Okay, how about on Zoom, Missy? No one on Zoom? Okay, we'll bring it back. Maybe you can answer some of those questions.
Thank you, management analyst Megan Manfredi again for the record. Some of the methods we would like to remain proprietary because we don't want to show our hands to the people who are actually trying to combat the system. But we do have ways, mainly through our licensing vendor, Calcami, who built the system to begin with. Methods basically that prevent like multiple browser sessions, prevent in the scenario brought up basically a bot creation. We mentioned earlier in the year or maybe sometime last year that a real-time refresh was going to be a thing, but in creating more of the preventions, we realized that it was a very actually great deterrent for bots in that consideration. And so the 30-second refresh will remain. We do have CAPTCHA in the system where if those who actually push the refresh button a lot, you would have ran into it already. But things like that. So there are methods that we have in place, and I plan to review the program and monitor the program to combat things like that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And what about penalties? I know we really haven't discussed in depth a penalty.
So the penalty for in the language, the penalty for, I guess, adding and dropping something from your cart is a 7-day cool down. So anybody who adds a tag to their cart will see not so much a suspension, but a cool down for 7 days. And that's an exact time, and it will be noted in the program basically to slow people down. So we don't want anybody just grabbing any tag because it showed up in the program. That was one of the things that we saw last year. And so we're just continuously learning, but that's one of those things of, if you add one thing to the cart, you're going to get that 7-day cool down. So just a general, I guess, note to the public, just, yeah, slow down, make sure you're grabbing what you want to grab, and yeah, completing that purchase. So.
Okay. Okay, any questions from the commission? Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So aside from the cool down, back on this penalty thing. So if it is determined that we have an individual that is egregiously abusing the system, what's the penalty?
So the penalty is suspension for the rest of the year, like no suspension for the program. And we do, again, like we said, we monitor the time a tag takes to show up in the program and then be added to the cart. If it's less than 2 or 3 seconds, it's out of physical human ability to do so. So it's kind of an instant red flag of, you're using a program, we know we're on it, you're suspended for the remainder of the year. If we see it constantly done, then it's you're out for the remainder of, I guess, your life. And that is in the regulation language that you see.
Okay, other questions? Go ahead.
So just for clarification, because I think I agree with the gentleman. I think these penalties is where the rubber starts meeting the road. And, this whole technology thing, people are going to continue, no matter what checks and balances we put in place, people are going to continue to push the envelope and find ways around this thing. And so, again, I agree. I think this penalty is a key piece to this in really sending a significant message to people that it's not acceptable. And if you do it, here's the consequences. So anyway, so again, if it is determined that someone is caught doing this, then again, they're done the remainder of the year.
Correct.
If they come back into the system and found out to be done yet a second time, then it is a lifetime ban.
Suspension from the first come, first served program. So an individual could still, apply for tags in the main draw, the second draw, be on an alternate list, but they just wouldn't be able to participate in the first come, first served program.
Could I ask Mr. Burnside, did you have any suggested penalties from your cab? I'm just curious.
So to be honest, I didn't know it was just a suspension from the first come, first served program. I mean, if someone is egregiously putting themselves at that much of an advantage over all the other hunters, I think it should be from the draw that they should, if it's multiple times, they don't get tags in Nevada anymore. And we thought that if you make the penalty stiffer than, you just can't participate in the first come, first serve for the rest of that year for the first time, people are still going to try it because it doesn't really deter them that much. That just means that they don't get to do it anymore that year. I think if we should have a penalty at the front end that tells them, hey, if you get caught doing this, you're not going to be able to participate in the next couple of draws.
And that's a true deterrent.
Mhm. Okay, thanks. I just was curious. Okay. Other questions, discussion? Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I came from a regulatory background, so regulations are in place to encourage voluntary compliance for sure. That's what their intent is. So having big penalties can definitely wake people up. So kind of, if we're going to go down that realm and kind of talk in that arena, is there, because I don't get tags, is there a box at the beginning that basically, makes people aware, hey, if you're acknowledging that if you're using software or you're using programs, or if you're doing these certain things, maybe these things that are on the back right here, that you could be subject to being removed from this and not being able to do it in the future, possibly permanently, kind of a progressive enforcement concept, but just an acknowledgement that when somebody gets in there, they have to check that boxes, acknowledging that they understand that. Sometimes that goes a long ways. Sometimes just making people aware, you might get that casual person out there that's just kind of, hey, I got this great idea. I'm going to open up 60 computers, but then we run into the folks that Mr. Drad mentioned, that creating programs and stuff, it's a whole different level, but at least, be able to say, hey, you knew and you continued forward, and it makes that enforcement on the other end a little bit easier, a little bit, maybe it's more tolerable for if we have that warning, hey, if you're going to cheat the system, you're going to pay consequences.
Currently, the system does not include that, but it sounds like what you were describing as a configuration base that our licensing vendor would be able to provide. But I would also, not to speak on their behalf, I would have to double check, follow up with them to make sure that it is something that they can do.
Yeah, I'm not trying to create a whole new thing that we have to do here, but maybe there's a couple of steps that we can take to kind of, discourage those people that are on the edge, the ones that call the department. Well, if I do this, if I do that, then what, and maybe just to notice that, hey, if you're playing with fire, you're probably going to get burnt. Quit asking questions. If you have to ask questions, you're probably pushing outside the boundary. So, but on one side and then on the other, the heavy penalty.
Mhm. Okay. Other discussion, Vice Chair Caviglia?
Yeah, I guess I'm with Commissioner McNinch. I would think, when we do our applications, Calcami, we have all the pop-ups.
Mhm.
I would think when you log into the first come, first serve, they could do another pop-up and say, hey, everybody acknowledge, recognize this is what could potentially happen. I would hope they could easily do that. And I think it would be beneficial. And then I guess the big question is what do we want? How heavy-handed do you want to be for the first infraction? Because I think the second infraction is pretty significant. So it's the real question is, do we just kick them out for that first season? Do you kick them out for a subsequent season? That's the real question to me.
So if I might or may, subsection 5 or section 5 says, if a person who uses the electronic system to apply for a tag pursuant to subsection 1 abuses the system by making continued and substantial efforts to create an unfair advantage as described in subsection 4, he or she shall be suspended by the department from using the electronic system to apply for remaining tags in any future hunting season. That is specific to first come, first serve, not to.
Correct. It is
Okay.
specific to first come, first serve program and
Okay.
not any other programs that the department offers.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because electronic system could be misconstrued.
Right.
Okay. Pleasure of the commission.
Mr. Chair, if I could just say a
Yes,
question. I just
Commissioner
have an
Perini.
idea.
Okay.
I was talking with the Attorney General over here, which is a great guy. And I think one of the things that we wonder about these laws that they have, the NRS, or even with the NACs and that sort of things. And I think we talk together, try to put these together. And does the Attorney General come with that and listen to that before it goes further that? Or do we have attorneys to look at that first and see exactly how we're changing that? Or is it just the people within that particular office do that?
I believe it's the people, but within that particular office. So if I understand your question correctly, it is the employees at LCB who actually draft the official language. A lot of the time, if they do have questions, they come back to the department and ask, well, what is the intent? Management analyst, Kaylee Musso and I kind of talked with LCB a lot with regulations on a constant of what do we mean by this? What are we trying to accomplish? And then they draft accordingly. I don't remember if that was happened here. I believe it was, but it was so long ago when I sent this in for drafting that I apologize that I do not remember.
Kind of somewhat I'm trying to say. Some of the information that comes with this, or even talking to people about this, where do we go? How do we fix that exactly the way it's going to be? Good people with the, like the attorney generals and other ones maybe help us a little bit. I'm sure they do it a lot. I think there's some stuff in with that. If they look at those laws, is it really the perfect, what we should be doing, or are we just moving forward with it? And that's what I'm trying to ask. That's all.
I'm not sure I know how to answer your question.
Maybe what we could do is ask Bobcat if he sees any concerns with this. Maybe I'm gathering that that's what Commissioner Perini is asking is, do you see concerns with this
Yeah.
in
so-
enforcing it?
Thank you. I think his was a process question,
It
more
was,
broadly
yeah.
described as, hey, how do we interact with our governmental representatives at the Attorney General's office? And then how does that work with respect to when we submit a regulation to LCB? And we do work together mostly, frankly, I wait till NDOW has a specific concern with regulation. They bring it to me. We'll send it to LCB, and quite often LCB doesn't really understand what this commission is trying to do with the regulation. So they will make changes to the language in a regulation, which of course may be problematic. And so we'll go back to them and say, hey, you're really not, doesn't happen very often. You're really not getting where we're going. But in terms of this regulation specifically, I try to keep my mouth shut because this is, you're doing the public's business, not me. The only concern I have from what I hear today, and you really, I think, Chairwoman, picked up on sort of the language of enforcement. We're speaking of the idea that we're going to temporarily suspend an individual through this regulation, but that language is not in the regulation. What the regulation says is if you engage in substantial and continual abuse of the first come, first serve, then we're going to permanently remove you from the program. So I think that as you hear it today, I think what you're hearing is the department is going to interpret this regulation to give them that authority for a temporary suspension. Should it be in the regulation? Perhaps. We've discussed this week between Tony and Jack and I, sort of this discretionary authorities that the department has, because the English language is not perfect. And what you guys are trying to get across to the public through your regulations and through statute is not always perfect. And the department has to be able to then carry out your direction. And often it's not clear. It's not exactly clear from the English language what you're intending with the regulation. So at times the department simply says, all right, you gave us a charge from this language. We're going to interpret it. We're going to go here and go there. And you guys always have the opportunity as a commission to say, hey, how did you guys interpret this? How did you guys interpret that? I don't know if that helps you, but this is a good example of that. Right here, you're hearing the department saying to you, we're interpreting this regulation to give us authority to temporarily suspend. It's up to you to decide if, well, shouldn't we include that in the regulation itself, the language of the regulation, if that's what we want you to do. Those are issues I pose for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Director Rob, I saw you move forward.
Jack Robb for the record. I fully understand the discussion around having the hammer bigger than it currently is. This gives us more tools than we currently have. We need those more tools without a doubt. I'm just afraid if we try to get to that full hammer where everybody's trying to get to, we may not make it through Ledge Commission and other things we need. And we need something on the books this year. This is the last meeting we can address this before we go live with the system. So we need something now. And I guarantee you, we're going to keep monitoring. We're going to keep changing. We're going to continue to get better with this. We will probably be doing this every year. As advancements come, as technology changes, as we learn, as our customers learn, we will continue to try to stay ahead of the game. So without a doubt, we will be in front of you next year discussing this. So please give us the tools we need now. They're a heck of a lot better than what we currently have. They may not be where we're going to get to, but we need something more than we currently have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And that is my feeling right now. And my thought is that we should, let's see how this year goes. We saw these things last year, the first year that it was implemented. If we see things additionally, we can move forward next year or in the future with other changes. But I think this does give the department some teeth, if you will, so that was my thought, but I'm open to Commissioner Rogers and then Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, no, I agree with Deputy Director Rob, and I was going to make that comment actually earlier, and that is this notion that this conversation isn't ending here today. I mean, technology changes, every minute, right? So in the next 6 months, as technology changes, we're going to be continually, I think, having this conversation. So, but I think we're getting close in terms of something that works, as Jack mentioned, giving some tools and resources. I also wanted to note that I agree with Commissioner McNinch. I think having some type of notice on the system to those individuals that says, hey, if you're doing these types of activities, here's the consequences, right? Also wanted to make a comment, the gentleman, again, talking about this punishment of the first come, first serve, and then kind of morphing into the actual draw. In my personal opinion, I think those are two different animals, but definitely, making the notion, making it known on that first come, first serve, that again, these things are being monitored and there's consequences for it. I'd definitely be supportive of that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm okay with moving forward as we are today. But I really do appreciate the deterrent that regulations or that penalties provide. And, it could be something as simple. I'll just throw it out. I'm not advocating for it today, but because we're never really sure where people are pushing. Is it at the beginning of the first come, first serve opportunities? Is it at the end? It might weigh into people's mindset, like, hey, if I just do it at the end and I miss out on a day, who cares? So it could be as simple as saying that they'll be excluded for this, for the remainder of this year plus one. That could be, so they get to miss a whole cycle forever. So if they try to pull something off at the beginning of the first come, first serve, they might realize kind of a 2-year missing opportunity. This is a privilege. This is a cool opportunity. It's not like, putting in for the regular tags, hoping that you draw one. This is something that people choose to participate in. And there's a lot of people doing it properly, honorably, honestly, and they deserve our support and our attention. That's for sure. So I throw that out as something to think about, but I'm okay with going where we're at. If we could look at it next year and, if we need to drive down bad actors, and we can continue to work on it. So.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Allenberg.
Yeah, I agree with everybody here. We need penalties. This is the difficulty with our job, right? Is there's always a sour apple in a bushel, and trying to keep it just to that sour apple is the difficulty. But without penalties, there's the incentive. So you got to stop it from the start. And so I agree with all of that, but also where we're at today and moving forward. So.
Commissioner Keel.
I agree with everybody else. So I'll move to approve Commission General Regulation 505 NAC 502 4215 as presented today.
Second.
Somebody wants to be out of here before
Somebody's
lunch.
got work to do today.
Okay, point of clarification,
Yes,
Commissioner
Madam Chair.
Rogers.
Yes, Madam Chair. Just in the motion, do we need to mention anything about what we discussed in terms of putting some type of?
The pop-up, I was going to ask, do we need that?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
You guys made your intent clear and it's something that we can circle back with our licensing vendor and get it done, hopefully before the season opens for first come, first served. But yes, that's a conversation we can have. And I don't believe it needs to be in the motion.
Okay, great. Well, then we have a motion on the table from Commissioner Keel and a second from Commissioner Barnes to approve Commission General Regulation 505 NEC 502.4215. First come, first serve prevention of unfair advantages. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Thanks. All right, 23C, Commission General Regulation 507, LCB file number R045-22, petition process, Management Analyst Megan Manfredi for possible action. The commission will consider adopting changes recommended by the APRP Committee to NAC 501.195. This regulation was approved by the committee at their March meeting and heard for a workshop by the commission in May. CGR 507 will now be considered by the commission for possible adoption.
Thank you, Chairwoman, members of the commission, management analysts again, Megan Manfredi for the record. Here on behalf of management analyst Kaylee Musso, who could not be here in attendance today. The Administrative Policies, Regulations, and Procedures Committee reviewed Commission Policy 4 and determined that some clarification needed to be made to Nevada Administrative Code 501.195. Commission General Regulation 507 clarifies some portions of that NAC describing the petition process. So what you see in your support materials is a result of the committee's determination, and an addition added by the commission during May's workshop adds the phrase taking into consideration the legal authority of the commission to subsection 2. With that, I will hopefully be able to answer any questions you guys have.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Manfredi? This one's pretty clear, I think. No? Okay, we'll go out for public comment here in Elko.
Sorry, Casey. We had just a point of clarification that came from our cab on the thing. We supported the petition regulation, and it came down to in section 1B, where it says, as she pointed out, basically understanding the authorities of the legal things. We feel that placing the burden of the legal basis for the existence and authority of the Wildlife Commission and NDOW on the petitioner seems to be something that could be discouraging. The way that we read the wording is they were discouraging the petitioner if he didn't understand the legal basis of how it impacted NDOW or the commission for supplying a petition. And maybe we're just reading it wrong. So we just wanted to make sure the wording is clear that the petitioner isn't required to understand that legal basis and how it impacts NDOW or the commission. And if it does, then I guess we'll try to figure it out, but we didn't understand how that reads. When you read 1B, it looks like we're saying that's the duty of the petitioner, and we don't think petitioners are going to have that capability. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other comment? Elko.
Madam Chairman, Jim Cooney, Elko Cab. When we were looking at this in section 4, it's stated within 30 days after a petition is submitted, we suggest adding or the next regularly scheduled meeting and scratch out the other section. It seemed to be, there was some concern and questions of exactly how soon that petition could be presented to the to the commission. And that seemed to be taken into consideration, the need to get that petition on the docket as soon as possible. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cooney. Anyone else here in Elko? Okay, how about on Zoom? No? Okay. Didn't we have section 4 was like that before, I want to say. Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to steal any thunder from Megan here, but I'll try to address both. So to Paul's comments, no, one of the biggest challenges is trying to bring this regulation, make it more realistic, because the general public's not going to understand legalities of laws and regulations and statutory authorities, that kind of stuff. So what we had tried to do in the past is kind of bring this down, but at the same time find that balance that they can't we don't want people to just willy-nilly just throw stuff on the table either and make everybody else work through it. We want them to think about, we want them to at least put an effort in to understand what they're proposing and how it might fit into a regulatory structure. So I think in conversations with LCB and maybe even Craig's been part of these conversations, we think that this language probably gets us there, finds that balance market, doesn't need to be modified. It's basically saying, look into the legal authority. You've got the department to help you with a little bit of that. The department's not said, hey, you're on your own here. They don't want to draft people's petitions for them and do all the work for them. But they've been pretty helpful in the past by saying, this is probably where you should look. If you're going to go in that area, you should look into this statute. So I think I'm okay with how that's written.
Okay.
The expectation, the bar is low. If somebody came in and they kind of missed a few spots, I don't think we're gonna. I know in the past we've had a moment where, and that's what I was trying to prevent, where we denied a petition because of this. But I think that I'm hoping that we're able to kind of see through that a little bit and understand that the general public's not gonna be versed in that. We're not versed in it. So the second thing, there's situations where folks, when they file a petition, they would like to wait another, they're willing to wait a meeting or two to get it closer to home. So that's why we didn't want to put in at the next scheduled meeting, which would have resolved that problem. But we do get people that say, hey, but I'm willing to wait until it's a little closer to home. So I'm not going from Las Vegas to Winnemucca or Lovelock. I mean, let's face it, Winnemucca and Lovelock are a tough place for folks from Vegas to get to, likewise Reno to Caliente, that's a tough one too. So I think that this kind of captures that. And if they want to go at the next meeting, it opens the door for us to push that to the next meeting. So I think that verbiage is where I would like it to.
Thank you, Commissioner McNinch. Ms. Manfredi.
Commissioner McNinch summed it up very well, especially I was going to speak to that subsection 4 is mainly a courtesy to the petitioner of we will work with you, especially out of the director's office, and the rotation of locations for the commission meetings. It's mainly of what's more convenient for you. How can we work with you? So I would highly encourage that language to stay.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or thoughts? No. Okay. Well, then we have a regulation up for adoption. Do we have a motion? Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion that we approve CGR 507 LCB file number R045-22 as proposed.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second from Vice Chair Cavilla. So we've got a motion by Commissioner McNinch and a second by Vice Chair Cavilla to approve Commission General Regulation 507 LCB file number R04-22, the petition process. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Okay, it is 10:20. We're going to take a 10-minute break. So it's 10:18. Let's come back at 10:30. We'll finish up our business. Thanks. fun, but I know. Breaking up the fun. We got to get stuff done so Casey doesn't zip out on us. Let's see, where are we at? 24. Okay, we've got our section 24 on the agenda, commission regulations for possible action and adoption, public comment allowed. 24A is commission regulation 22-12, 2022 to 2023 upland game and fur bear seasons and bag limits. Wildlife staff specialists, Sean Espinoza and Russell, but I don't see Russell, Woolston-Hume for possible action. The commission will establish and may vote to amend regulations for upland game birds and mammals, as well as fur bearers for the 2022-2023 season. This regulation may also include modifications to the fall wild turkey seasons for 2022 and spring wild turkey seasons for 2023.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Sean Espinoza for the record. I'm the Upland Games Staff Specialist, here to present the recommendations for Commission Regulations CR 22-12. What we've done normally in the past is sort of break this regulation down a bit, just because it's pretty comprehensive. And usually with what we start with is the youth seasons, move on to sage grouse. And then from there, we do most other upland game species and then move on to turkeys and then fur bearers. So if that pleases the commission, I think that's the approach we'll take this morning.
I think that would be great.
Great. Okay, so starting with the youth seasons, once again, we're recommending a 9-day period. And for 2022, that 9-day period would be from October 1st through October 9th. And then for 23, that would be from September 30th through October 8th for the youth chucker and Hungarian partridge season. And then for rabbit seasons, actually we'll go with California quail. The same would be in place there. And for the youth Gamble's quail season, the same would be in place there, but we are recommending a lower limit, daily bag limit of 5 and possession limit of 15 for Gamble's quail, which would be the same for the adult season and be reflected there as well, just because of the extreme drought conditions in the Mojave Desert and the limited population of birds that we're observing there. For the youth rabbit season, the same season dates would be in place there for 2022 and 2023. We are recommending a reduced daily bag limit there and a reduced possession limit of 5 and 15 for rabbits. We've been conducting rabbit surveys for the past 2 years and have certainly seen a decline in the rabbit population, likely associated with the drought conditions. We don't know how much it might be associated with rabbit hemorrhagic disease type 2, but that's certainly a concern. And one of the things you'll note for the youth season and the adult season is we're recommending a closure of pygmy rabbit season just because of the loss of available habitat, notably sagebrush across the state, and rabbit hemorrhagic disease being detected in pygmy rabbit populations. We have a research project that we're conducting with University of Nevada, Reno, and they have also noted a very significant decline in pygmy rabbit populations in 5 study sites across the state. So we're recommending a closure of the pygmy rabbit season. So that will conclude the youth portion of it, and then you guys can deliberate on that.
Okay, any questions on the youth hunts? No. Okay, then we'll go out for public comment on the youth hunts under CR 22-12. Don't see any in Elko. Do we have anything on Zoom? Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission for further discussion or a motion to approve the youth hunts. Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make a motion to approve that portion of CR 22-12 relevant to youth chucker and Hungarian partridge, youth California quail, youth Gambel's quail, and youth rabbit as presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second from Commissioner Perini. So we have a motion by Commissioner McNinch and a second by Commissioner Perini to approve that portion of CR 22-12 with respect to the youth hunts. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. East, we'll talk about changes to sage grouse next. So what we are recommending is a 9-day season in Elko County for hunt units 062, 064, 067, 071, 072, 073, and 074 with a daily limit of 2 and a possession limit of 2. So that reflects a reduction in the possession limit from 4 to 2. We are also recommending 2-day seasons in hunt units 161 and 162 in Central Nevada and 012 and 013 of Western Nevada and hunt unit 031 and 051 in North Central Nevada with a daily limit of 2 and possession limit of 2 as well. These units, so we pivoted a bit. These units are reflecting populations of birds where we believe we have over 1,000 birds in the population and where we've estimated harvest to be 5% or less of that population. Before it was, we were having some shortened seasons in areas where we had populations of 500 birds. So given the condition of habitat, the drought, what we've seen in terms of population decline, we thought that that was a prudent approach. So one of the changes that you'll note is that we're not recommending a special season for sage grouse in the Sheldon National Wildlife Refuge this year, which is a change. And then, so this would actually reflect a reduction from 31 hunt units last year down to just 13 hunt units this year. So pretty significant change and reflects what we're seeing in the population right now. So be happy to take any questions on sage grouse and put it out for public comment.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Espinoza? Commissioner Keel?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe just the thoughts behind reducing the possession limit from 4 to 2. And what's the thoughts behind that?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Keel. Where we have those hunt units where it's just a 2-day hunt and just 13 open hunt units, we think we're going to see a little bit of an increase in participation, particularly in a few areas like 012 and 013 and 031 as well. So that was sort of a kind of a mitigation measure to make sure that we weren't encouraging overharvest of the population. 031 is one of those spots where people just love to hunt that. And I think we had wardens contact almost 200 people last year in the field. So it's one of those things we really want to keep a close eye on. Again, our populations have declined by 5% annually for 5 years statewide. So we're taking a really conservative approach with respect to sage grouse currently.
Yeah, thank you for that. You jogged my memory for sure. I remember the horror stories about 031 and the issues we've had up there before. So yeah, I can totally support that.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go out for public comment. Are we going through the other grouse, Dusky?
Not
Are you
yet.
just doing this, okay. Sorry. Any public comment here in Elko? Come on up.
I just have a question for Mr. Espinoza. What's the estimated population in 034?
Mr. Gerard, can you please state your name for the
Oh, I'm
record?
sorry, ma'am.
Yeah, thank
Michael
you.
Gerard, Humboldt County.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead and ask your question. Did you get it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. Estimated population in 034, I'd have to go back and probably look at that, but it's probably around 200 to 250 birds based on the let counts that we have. Yeah, and it was a place that, you know, obviously at one time had well over 500 birds. Not a lot of significant changes in the Black Rock Range in terms of habitat. Significant number of horses and a significant effect of drought conditions. Springs, seeps, meadows, streams in the Black Rock Range. It's probably my favorite mountain range in the state. And it's undergone some significant changes over the last 10 to 15 years, unfortunately. Luckily, knock on wood, we haven't had any major fires in that particular unit. So the shrub community is in pretty decent shape, but and even higher elevations have pretty good understory, but you know, just the drought conditions have really taken a toll there.
Okay, I think he had one more question, and then we need to go back around to make
I
sure. we get
apologize to
everybody.
burn
That's
up
okay.
all the time. Michael Gerard, Humboldt County again. Mr. Espinoza again. I understand that the Summit Lake Tribe does some collaring and monitoring of the sage-grouse as well. Certainly you guys get data from them, right? Yes, should have. Okay, we do. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other public comment here in Elko? Okay, how about on Zoom? No, okay, we'll bring it back to the commission for further comment or a motion. Commissioner Barnes?
Okay. See, not much comment. I'm going to make a motion.
Okay.
I move to accept that portion of regulation 22-12 sage grouse as presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second by Commissioner Keel. So we have a motion by Commissioner Barnes and a second by Commissioner Keel to approve that portion of CR 22-12 with respect to sage grouse. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair East. We'll tackle most other upland game birds and mammals now. So for dusky, sooty, and ruffed grouse, we're recommending a season from September 1st through December 31st with a daily bag limit of 3 and a possession limit of 9. So no change from last year. For Himalayan snowcock in Elko and White Pine counties, hunt units 101 through 103, we're recommending a season from September 1st through November 30th with a daily bag limit of 2 and possession limit of 2. For chukar and Hungarian partridge, we're recommending a season for 2023 from October 15th, 2022 through February 5th of 2023. And for 23, we're recommending a season from October 14th, 2023 through February 4th, 2024 with a daily bag limit of 6 and possession limit of 18. For California quail, that same season that I described for chukar and Hungarian partridge would be in place with a daily bag limit of 10, possession limit of 30. Same for Gamble's quail, except for the daily bag limit would be reduced from 10 to 5, and the possession limit would be reduced from 30 to 15. For mountain quail, we're recommending that same season structure for mountain quail as well, with a daily bag limit of 2 and a possession limit of 6. For pheasant, recommending a season from November 1st through November 30th, the daily bag limit of 2 and possession limit of 6. And for white-tailed jackrabbits and cottontail rabbits, we're recommending a season that would extend from November 1st through the last day in February. So a little bit of a reduced season there. And then the reduced daily and possession limit down to 5 and 15 for rabbits as well, with the closure for the pygmy rabbit season.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Espinoza? I've seen a reduction in jackrabbits just around our house, but I was wondering if that was one of the diseases, or if it's the maybe additional coyotes or something. But are you seeing jackrabbits too in this?
Like I mentioned, we've been conducting some pretty comprehensive rabbit surveys across the state.
Yeah.
And we saw low densities in the summer of 2020, and then even reduced rabbit densities per mile in the summer of 2021. We'll see if we see a response this year. I think it's mainly associated with the significant drought conditions, especially in the valley bottoms around the state. Just grass species just aren't there. And I can't really tell you at this point whether or not rabbit hemorrhagic disease is having an effect, but I know it is in other states. And I would suspect that it's having some effect in Nevada as well.
Thanks.
Mrs. Chair. if I can talk on that?
Yes, Commissioner Perini.
I look at exactly what you did through that, and I think it's really excellent. I really do. It was really sad to see the numbers going down, but I'm glad to hear that because the birds are lower. There really is. And I think it's really, really well. The Cabs did a really good job with their information of what they think we should have for quail, for example. And everything what you did on that, I really feel better. I think people that hunt are okay with what's going on that. So I appreciate the hard work you put on that. It's a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll go out for public comment in Elko. Come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Larry Teskey, Lander County Game Board. Our game board recommended for the chucker season that the season be reduced in length from the opening days till December 31st. The reasoning, because the base populations are so low. I was a former NDOW employee and did brood surveys for lots of years, and I don't do them anymore, but it just seems like I've never seen the base populations this low in Lander County. We have a chucker tournament yearly in our county, and they keep track of how many birds are taken by how many hunters. Normally, well, this year, this past season, there were 300 plus entrants in the chucker tournament. And the total harvest in the 1 day of hunting was 62 birds. And that's not limited. They can hunt in any county. They aren't limited to Lander County. And of that 30 or 62 birds, 6 hunters got limits. So 36 birds were taken by 6 hunters. So anyway, so I hope that gives you some feeling of why we want season length reduced to try and keep more of or raise the base population again. And with the drought conditions, I know it's difficult, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teskey. Anyone else in Elko? Okay, seeing none, do we have anyone on Zoom? Okay, thanks. We'll bring it back to the commission for consideration. Thoughts on the season? Do you have any thoughts on the season change request?
Yeah, thanks for the question, and I'll answer through you, Madam Chair. Certainly respect everything Mr. Teskey has to say there. And, there's probably no greater authority on birds in at least Lander County, Nevada than Mr. Teskey. One of the things that, and we did talk about this at length during our Upland Game season setting meeting annually, and we spent quite a bit of time on it. With the price of gas this year, who knows what's going to happen by the time we get to hunting season, but with $6 a gallon right now, I think that's going to be limiting some folks' trips. And so we thought of that. The other thing that we've kind of demonstrated in the past is that, there's a little bit of a law of diminishing returns here on chucker. Once populations decline, we start to see a decline in participation. And we've noticed that in the past, because that's always been a topic of conversation, especially for chucker, is how much you control chucker populations with the gun. And, I think the argument that Mr. Teskey brings forward, when you have 300 people out there, but they only harvest 62 birds, is that really meaningful from a population standpoint? You've got that much participation out there, and yet you only have 62 birds harvested. In the grand scheme of things, that's probably not going to mean a whole heck of a lot with respect to the chucker population. So what's going to drive chucker is whether you get rainfall or you don't. But there's probably going to be some balance in there somewhere. And if we don't start getting precipitation here within the next year or two, then, we may have to alter our management recommendations, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
Okay, thanks for that explanation.
Again, if I could,
Commissioner
please.
Perini?
I'm sorry for taking your time. But one of the things that you had with the waterfowl was something that we had done the last time we were here. And we are at the same date for the waterfowl and also for the upland game is really important because that way you have that. Okay, some people are going to go duck hunt and some of them are going to go on for that. So that point, it kind of lails it down a little bit that so many get shot, with that type of thing. So I was glad to hear that it was going to be chucker might be one higher than that. And the other one would be duck down below. And then that would be more common, people hunting in those different places. So now put them together, hopefully there won't be that many people harming so awfully much all the numbers that you would harvest on it. I think a lot of people were talking about that is that they're very, very concerned about the chucker situation because gee whiz, when it goes there and that happens and the dry is so terrible right now, and it seems to be that way, we're worried about that. But I'm glad that we could try that for now. And if we had to change back again next year, if we don't have a better weather, then probably have to think about that. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Other comments? A motion on the table?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Keel.
Yeah, and I certainly respect Mr. Teskey's comments for sure. And, Lander, if we did go with that, I'd, have to hear from the other parts of the state for sure. The chucker hunters are a breed of their own. And if we made that statewide, I'm sure we'd hear about it.
Yeah.
But with that, I'd like to move to adopt Commission Regulation 22-12 as presented for the sections blue and rough grouse, snowcock, chucker and Hungarian partridge, California quail, Gambel's quail, mountain quail, pheasant, white-tailed jackrabbits, and cottontail rabbits.
Okay, do I have a second? I have a second from Commissioner Perini. So we have a motion on the table by Commissioner Keel and a second by Commissioner Perini to approve that portion of CR 22-12 for the blue and ruffed grouse, snowcock, chucker and Hungarian partridge, California quail, Gambel's quail, mountain quail, pheasant, and white-tailed jackrabbits and cotton-tailed rabbits. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Okay. Turkeys.
Okay, Madam Chair East, I think we'll move on to turkeys. And on page 7 of the Commission General or the Commission Regulation 22-12, this was brought to my attention by the License Office. In the application procedures, that box at the top of that page, if you go down to the third paragraph, at the bottom, the last sentence, the release date will be the first Friday in March. Our license office would like that to read, the release date will be on or before the first Friday in March. Just to clarify that.
The first Friday in March? Or
First Friday
day?
in March.
Okay.
And then for the junior wild turkey spring seasons 2023 and 2024, all those season dates would be the last Saturday in March through, actually, I stand corrected. For Mason Valley Wildlife Management Area, we're recommending last Saturday in March through first Sunday in May with a quota of 3. Moapa Valley of Clark County, last Saturday in March through the second Friday in April with a quota of 3. Hunt units 102, 103, and 065, last Saturday in March through first Sunday in May with a quota of 3. Hunt unit 115 in White Pine County, last Saturday in March through the first Sunday in May with a quota of 1. Pershing County, last Saturday, March through first Sunday in May with a quota of 2. Hunt Unit 152 in Lander County last Saturday in March through first Sunday in May with a quota of 2. Unit 154 in Lander County, which is an additional hunt unit last Saturday in March through first Sunday in May with a quota of 1. And then Lincoln County last Saturday in March through first Sunday in May with a quota of 5.
Okay. All right, and we're just going to deal with the youth hunt. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Espinoza on the youth hunt for turkeys? Okay, I don't see any. So how about public comment in Elko? None? How about on Zoom? Is anyone on Zoom? Okay. Just curious. Okay, well, I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion to approve wild turkey junior hunt. Do I have a motion? Sure. Vice Chair Cavilla?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve in relation to CR 22-12. In regards to the application procedure, we're going to add on the third paragraph in the last sentence, the release date will be on or before the first Friday in March. And then on the junior wild turkey hunt 2023 and 2024 spring hunt, approve it as presented.
Okay, do I have a second? I have a second from Commissioner Allenberg. So we have a motion by Vice Chair Cavilla and a second by Commissioner Allenberg with the with respect to wild turkeys, the noted change in the third paragraph. The release date will be on or before the first Friday in March, and the junior wild turkey 2023 and 2024 spring hunt 0138 with in commission regulation 22-12 as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Okay, Madam Chair, East, now we'll tackle the general season wild turkey spring hunt for Hunt Unit 101 in Elko County. Season recommended would be from the last Saturday in March through the first Sunday in May with a resident tag quota of 5. For Hunt Units 102 and 065 of Elko County, last Saturday in March through first Sunday in May with a tag quota of 10 resident and 1 non-resident. Hunt Unit 151 and 152 of Lander County, 2 hunt periods, last Saturday in March through second Sunday in April with a resident quota of 3. Third Saturday in April through the first Sunday in May with a quota of 3. Hunt Unit 154 of Lander County, last Saturday in March through first Sunday in May, a resident tag quota of 4. In Lincoln County, last Saturday in March through first Sunday in May with a resident quota of 15 and a non-resident quota of 1. And then for Mason Valley Wildlife Management Area of Hunt Unit 203, we would have 3 seasons in 2023, 3 seasons in 2024 as described, with a resident quota of 3 for each of those and a non-resident quota of 1 for the April 29th through May 7th, 2023, and then the March 30th through April 7th of 2024. For Moapa Valley of Clark County, we would have 3 hunt periods in 2023, 3 hunt periods in 2024, with a resident quota of 4 for each of those, and a non-resident quota of 1 for March 25th through March 31st, 2023, and then April 6th through April 12th of 2024. And in Pershing County, the season would extend from last Saturday in March through the first Sunday in May with a resident quota of 10, non-resident quota of 1. And then Hunt Unit 115 of White Pine County, last Saturday in March to the first Sunday in May, the resident quota of 4. And then on page 10, we would have spring private lands hunt available for Paradise Valley last Saturday in March through the first Sunday in May. And then also a fall hunt for Paradise Valley, which would extend from the first Saturday in October through the last Sunday in October. And one of the significant changes I'll point out from last year is we're not recommending a private lands turkey hunt for Lyon County this year.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mr. Espinoza with respect to the wild turkey seasons and quotas? No? Okay. Any public comment here in Elko? I don't see any on Zoom. Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission for a motion to approve wild turkeys. Vice Chair Cavilla.
Sure. So I'll make a motion to approve that portion of CR 22-12 relating to wild turkey 2023 through spring limited entry hunts 031, 0131 and 0132. Let's see. 0135 and 0137.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, you're good. Do I have a second? I have a second from Commissioner Barnes. So we have a motion to approve that portion of the wild turkey hunts in CR 22-12. Motion is from Vice Chair Cavilla and second from Commissioner Barnes. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. I think that takes us to falconry.
Falconry, yeah.
Falconry.
Yeah, so no significant changes there for falconry. The season date recommendation would be from September 1st through the last day of February. A daily bag limit of 2, a possession limit of 8. All resident upland game birds except turkey and Columbian sharp-tailed grouse. White-tailed jackrabbits and cottontail rabbits. The taking of sage grouse by falconry is only allowed in those units where there is an established open season, and the daily and bag and possession limit for sage grouse would be 2.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Espinoza? I don't see any. Any public comment here in Elko? Nope, and on Zoom. Okay, bring it back to the commission for a motion. I will move to approve the falconry season portion of CR 22-12 as presented. Do I have a second? I have a second from Commissioner McNinch to approve the falconry season as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Fur-bearing animals.
So I'll do my best with this, Madam Chair, East, and I think we do have Staff Specialist Russell Wolstenhume on Zoom available if there's any questions.
Okay.
I think the significant change here would be with the Bobcat sealing dates. The changes would allow for an individual to have a single Bobcat per year for taxidermy or tanning purposes to be sealed at any of the NDOW regional offices in Elko, Las Vegas, or Reno. The dates open for regional office sealing are from the season opener until the first regularly scheduled sealing date in mid-January. For beaver, mink, and muskrat would be a statewide open area from October 1st through October 30th. Otter, it would include the counties of Elko, Eureka, Humboldt, Lander, and Pershing counties. The season dates would be from October 1st through March 31st. For kit and red fox, season dates would be from October 1st through the last day of February. Bobcat seasons would extend from the second Saturday in November through the third Sunday in February. For gray fox, the second Saturday in November through the third Sunday in February. And those are Bobcats and gray fox would be closed to non-residents. And then the Bobcat sealing dates are presented in the table on page 13.
And 14. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Espinoza or Mr. Wolstenhume? Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So other than a single exception for taxidermy sealings, is that like one Bobcat per person per year, or is it just one time period, or how does that, I'm
Pretty sure it's one per person per year, but Administrator Scott's coming up to
he gave me a thumbs up.
Mike Scott for the record. Yes, one Bobcat per person per year.
Any other questions? Commissioner Keel?
And Mr. Gerard, just, I think you asked my question, but just to clarify, it says that, any person who wishes to, and goes on to say, may personally present the lawful taken pelt. So it'd have to be a resident, because we don't include non-residents in the Bobcat season. And they would still require a trapping license to obtain that pelt.
Correct.
Secretary Wasley?
So I just want to speak to the origin of this language. So you can be in possession of a Bobcat absent a trapping license if you have a hunting license and it's taken via hunting methods. And where this has been a challenge is Bobcats are a CITES species and therefore regulated, more heavily regulated. We've had some instances, this was brought to our attention by some taxidermists who felt that they had some vulnerability in taking possession of Bobcats from chucker hunters who might be in the field chucker hunting, that had a hunting license and then lawfully took a Bobcat and then for personal reasons wanted to have that Bobcat tanned or mounted, but didn't want to wait for 2 months or put it in their freezer or have that pelt damaged and take it to a taxidermist who then had some liability, especially if it was sent then out of state to a tannery, then that would be a violation of a species protected under CITES. So the idea here, where we've historically required individuals in lawful possession of a Bobcat outside of trapping to wait for the sealing dates associated with trapping, it created a problem for taxidermists, tanneries, and hunters alike. And so what this is intended to do is to provide an opportunity for an individual who obtains a Bobcat through legal means to get it to a taxidermist who can then send it to a tannery without any violation of state or federal law. And it would be one animal per year per individual, and it would be available at NDOW offices up until the date when the Bobcat sealing for trapping began.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, I don't see any. Do we have any public comment here in Elko? We do.
For the record, Paul Dixon Clark. Although we approved all of this, there were a couple of questions asked that I thought I'd ask you here. One of them is for the single use sealing. Why isn't the Ely office a place you can get sealed? You have Elko, Vegas, and Reno, but not Ely. Ely's a standard sealing place for the seasons. And that question was asked of why the Ely office wasn't available. Only the other three offices were mentioned. And the second thing is as I wasn't sure, we've always talked in the past about Bobcat seasons being, minimal, average, or longer. And with the drought and the reduction in their prey, main prey species, rabbits and other things, is this season consistent with being middle of the road or low because of the drought and the fact that we have a lower food source, meaning that Bobcats by and large are not going to be on the upswing, they're going to be level or going down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment in Elko? Come on up.
Michael Gerard, Humboldt County. Humboldt County would like to see the Bobcat season start on December 1st and go to the last day of February. And we've been trying for over 10 years, well over 10 years, to get this to start on December 1st and not harvest these cats in November. And there's multiple reasons for this. Number one, they're not prime. A cat doesn't biologically prime until February. So, and that can be proven. We can take 4 cats from the same mountain range, one in November, one in December, January, February, bring them in here, lay them on the table. And you guys, a layman could walk up and tell the difference. I mean, it's that obvious. And like Commissioner Keel's a trapper, he could attest to that. Mr. Krim here's a trapper, he could attest to that. Then also conflict with bird hunters. In our neck of the woods up in northwestern Nevada, that's where most of chukar hunting is done. There's a tremendous conflict with trappers and chukar hunters. They smash our traps, they set the traps off, they steal them, they shoot the animals in the traps and leave them for the birds or leave them to rot before you get there. And if you walk up and there's a hole eating the size of this paper and the size of the cat, you can't sew that. So that cat has to be thrown away, which is morally and ethically wrong. November cats aren't prime. I've talked about that. So if you won't consider doing that statewide, at least consider doing the season December 1st to the last day of February, just in Humboldt County for us then, is what we're requesting. And that would be no different than like the waterfowl seasons are split up in 3 different zones in the state. So that's what we're requesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerard. Any other comments here in Elko County? Okay, how about on Zoom? We do have a comment on Zoom. Joel, okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can, hello.
Oh, hi, how you doing, Tiffany? Just for the record, Nevada Trappers Association supports the department recommendation. And just for a matter of clarification, I think Mr. Espinoza made a mistake when he was presenting the beaver, mink, and muskrat seasons. He said October 1 to October 30th, and it should have been until April 30th, not October. So just that for clarification. As far as the Bobcats go, we had the prices on Bobcats between our sale and the Idaho sale 2 weeks later dropped in half because of the Ukraine-Russia war. That's where most of the furs are consumed, is over in that part of the world. So I don't see that the market for Bobcats is going to be very good at all this year. So I expect trapper turnout to be poor at best. And if you're really concerned about pygmy rabbits and chukars and stuff, you ought to let us roam free. So anyway, that's about all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Blakesley. And that's it for public comment. Okay. We'll bring it back to the commission. What do you think about Humboldt's request for December 1st? And maybe that's a question for.
I think I'm going to give that opportunity to Russell since he's online
Sure.
and be able to answer that question.
You got it. Hi, Mr. Wilson-Hume.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity. Russell Wilson-Hume for the record. So right now, just peeling out one county, it kind of would create a law enforcement fiasco because county lines aren't clearly defined on the landscape. What happens is you've got a trapper putting a line out across the landscape and not knowing exactly where that county line is becomes questionable on which side of the line are you on if you're trapping on in a mountain range that covers 2 counties. It creates a problem for both the trapper because it puts them at jeopardy of not knowing exactly where they are, and it puts law enforcement in a burden because they're trying to watch a line, on those differing season dates to make sure that they're not one way or the other. I fully understand and respect the comments coming out of Mr. Gerard. And I understand that. I think that that's an argument that has been made before and is worthy of further discussion. But I think that if we're going to make changes that way, it should be considered on a statewide basis and not piecemealed, in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wilson-Hume. I think, was it Mr. Dixon? We're through public comment. We're back here. I think you mentioned the Elko Ely office. I see Ely on here. Is that?
Not for the 1-day seal.
Not for the. Am I not reading this correctly? Oh, down here. Oh, okay. Okay.
I didn't know if that was an oversight or intention.
Mr. Scott is approaching, so let's hear from him. My apologies.
Mike Scott for the record. The reason that we chose the three regional offices was because the seals are accountable property and we keep them in safes because we charge $5 for each one of those. And so that was just the reason. We even as a biologist, we have a lot of sealing dates in various offices, but those seals are brought to those offices and then they're returned. So we just wanted to make it easier. In the future, we may, if we have the facilities to do that, we could expand it. But to begin, we just wanted to start it off with the three regional offices.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts from the commission? A motion to approve fur-bearing animals? Go ahead, Vice Chair Cavilla.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve that portion of CR 22-12 relating to fur-bearing animals for beaver, mink, muskrat, otter, kit, and red fox, bobcat, and gray fox as presented, as well as the bobcat pelt sealing dates with the additional new language that was presented.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? A second from Commissioner Rogers. So we have a motion to approve fur-bearing animals in the CR 22-12 as presented from Vice Chair Cavilla and Commissioner Rogers. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Thank you, Mr. Espinoza.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay. We are moving on to Commission Regulation 22-05 Amendment Number 1, 2023 Heritage Tag Vendors. Committee Chairman Tom Barnes and Management Analyst Megan Manfredi for possible action. The commission will review the Wildlife Heritage Committee's recommendations regarding heritage tag vendor proposals for 2023 and may take action on the proposals.
Thank you, Chairwoman, members of the commission. Again, Management Analyst Megan Manfredi for the record. The proposed commission regulation amendment reflects the Heritage Committee's recommendations to assign the 2023 heritage tag to vendors to sell at auction. The committee determined these recommendations at their May meeting, reviewed and approved the amendment you see before you at their June meeting, which was held yesterday morning. And with that, I'll give it back to the commission or to Committee Chair Barnes if you wanted to add anything.
Commissioner Barnes?
Megan pretty well covered it, but these are the recommendations that the committee came up with, and both committee meetings, we felt comfortable with what we did. So that's the committee's recommendation, and I guess as chairman, that's what I would recommend.
Okay. Do we have any questions? No? Okay. We'll take this out for public comment. Any public comment here in Elko with respect to the heritage tag vendors? Not in here. How about on Zoom? Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion to approve. Vice Chair Cavilla.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve CR 22-05 Amendment Number 1, 2023 Wildlife Heritage Tag Seasons and Quotas as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Barnes. So we have a motion by Vice Chair Cavilla and a second by Commissioner Barnes to approve CR 2205 Amendment Number 1, 2023 Wildlife Heritage Tags and Tag Seasons and Quotas as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. All right. We're moving along here. Agenda item number 26 is a petition from Mr. David Flanders, use of air rifles for possible action. Mr. Flanders has submitted a petition to allow air rifles to hunt. The commission may take action to deny or accept the petition and initiate rulemaking. Is he here? Come on up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
David Flanders, Carson City, Nevada.
Okay. You want to talk to us about your petition?
Sure.
Okay.
I tried to provide as much info as I could with the petition. And I will answer any questions I can if there are any.
Can you tell us how this maybe came about?
Well, I lost my hunting privileges years ago, being a dumb kid. And I just want to do it again, you know, and get back into it. I've always loved it and want to continue doing it. I understand Nevada requires a lot of energy from any rifle to hunt big game, and we now have the technology to do so. So I thought I would bring it to the forefront and see if we could make this happen.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Flanders? First off the bat, maybe we want to go out for public comment and hear what the concerns are from the public first, or questions of Mr. Flanders? Okay, I don't see any. So why don't we take it out for public comment and we'll bring it back? So do we have any public comment here in Elko with respect to the petition? No? Okay, how about on Zoom? Nope, okay, I'll bring it back to the commission. Any questions for Mr. Flanders? Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mhm.
So, Mr. Flanders, in all fairness to you, you've got a long way to go to bring me even up to speed on this kind of stuff.
Sure.
So if I could ask you to take a few minutes and explain air guns and kind of some of the packet that you provided with us, and just go over it, the time that you've spent on it. If you could go over some of that material, I think it would be helpful for me to better understand what you're trying to accomplish here. So
Certainly, air rifles, any rifle in Nevada for big game must produce 1,000 foot-pounds of energy at 100 yards. And so that's a tall order for pretty much any air gun. Grandpa's Red Ryder BB gun is not going to do that. We now have a 72 caliber air rifle with 4,500 PSI that we charge it to through a scuba tank. And we can produce 1,500 foot-pounds of energy, excuse me, at the muzzle. So in order to carry that energy downrange, we can do that now. I have some samples of the slugs that we use, and I have done my own testing. There are other slug makers in the country who do testing as well. And we the airgun technology has come such a long way, and we now have the power to achieve the energy that we need downrange to ethically take a large animal.
That answer your question?
for me, I'm not going to know exactly the best questions to ask. So it's going to fall back on a lot of you guys to do that. So, you know, I've, you know, look, I'm not into the, you know, I have my own rifles and stuff, but not, I don't get involved with them the way that you're talking. So I'm just trying to be fair to you that, you know, you're talking to somebody that just doesn't have that kind of knowledge. And I think the more that you share with me, the better off you have at trying to get me to open my mind to something like this, because I, you know, barring information that's going to take me a direction, I'm probably where I'm probably not, I have probably haven't moved anywhere yet. So that's, I'm trying to be fair to you. You've made a trip up here to do this, and I appreciate that. And so, and I don't know where everybody else sits. So.
Okay, other questions? Commissioner Keel.
Yeah, it might just be clearer for me, and I don't know if the department, you know, has any background of, you know, why this regulation or what the threshold was developed on, but maybe some background on, you know, some of that criteria might be helpful if we have anybody.
Yeah.
I spoke with Mr. Rob some time back about how the energy standards came about. And he had advised me that there were issues with arrows not having enough draw weight to properly penetrate the animal for a humane kill. And I'm not real good at this. I'm sorry. I don't know.
You're fine.
Does everybody have my
We do.
petition packet?
Yeah, we do.
So the numbers in here obviously are my own. obviously I couldn't bring the weapon in for a show and tell, but I can certainly.
We'll ask Mr. Rob to come up because I have some questions too. I have one of the same questions as Commissioner Keel, but any other questions of Mr. Flanders before we move? Yes, Vice Chair Cavilla.
I guess are you asking that we add the air guns to an any legal weapon for any species within Nevada? I mean, it's not clarified within the package. Is that your request?
There is air gun hunting allowed in Nevada for smaller game, but not for big game. So again, we're back to the 1,000 foot-pounds of energy at 100 yards.
And then I got to ask I'm looking at some of these couch you provided, and I'm looking at this one specifically, like to the 880 grain Spitzer. That's a big bullet, 784 feet per second. That's slow. I mean, that's slower than a muzzleloader at the barrel. And I just see, where did you get with these calculations? We got this information just yesterday, but your maintenance of your energy in these different yardages to me seems really high for something that big traveling that slow. Again, I didn't have an opportunity to back into this, but that's my concern. I mean, this, we shoot muzzleloaders, or the muzzleloaders we shoot with, they're shooting substantially faster, a little smaller bullets, but this is a very slow, very limited bullet. It is. It's in your distance wise, just because this is a very limited distance weapon. And that's my concern, is that guys go to try to utilize this to hunt elk or something, and for me, this is a difficult one to hunt elk with, or any of the bigger animals. And then also I see as an enforcement side of it for the game wardens, I mean, how are we going to determine? It's pretty easy with our standard rifle cartridges to know where we're at as far as bullets, but how's a game warden in the field going to determine if the muzzleloader meets this threshold at 100 yards? You understand what I'm saying? As far as an enforcement side of it, I see that as being an issue as well.
Well, to my knowledge, this is the only production air rifle that can achieve these numbers. So the hunter's application would be the burden of proof of what weapon they would use to do the actual hunting, and it would have to be this one unless they had something else.
Okay, I think we need some department thoughts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start, and then maybe we can have law enforcement share their perspective. And so I just want to address this maybe at three levels. The first is the process piece, and I kind of heard the question, where this came from or where the department is on it or something along those lines. And this kind of goes back to the whole petition process. And, we interacted with the petitioner and suggest, maybe give law enforcement, talk about what, where to look for this language as it currently exists. And so, it isn't the department's place to say, oh, we don't like it, or we love it, or, go forward. And so we assist petitioners just in a general sense with how to have the conversation and how to bring it forward. Maybe the next level is the weaponry across the broader suite of weapons, and right, wrong, or indifferent. One of the national concerns that I've heard voiced is the lack of paying into federal excise tax. So these weapons don't pay the 10 or 11% that handguns and long guns do, or ammunition does. And so that is one complaint or concern that I've heard nationally around the conversation with these weapons relative to some of the traditional. And then thirdly, and maybe more specifically as far as into the weeds, the physics. I mean, Nevada clearly unique in the absence of vegetation, the distance of the shots, even with traditional weapons and rifled slugs in the east, or versus the western big game hunting, and those distances and the size of the animals and the topography create some significant challenges. And I think that gets back to where we presently are as a state where we have a fairly rigorous standard compared to other states and what we require of our weapons. We've had some conversations in here. We've talked about smart weapon technology and triggers, and so I think that having some perspective from law enforcement, maybe as far as enforceability, I think the issues that Vice Chairman Caviglia brought up, particularly, we see that right now with some of our archery. We have no way of testing, percent let off, and we have some regulations on the books as far as those requirements that we have no means to measure, and this could further complicate that. So hopefully that's broad, but I would ask if either Jake Kramer or Brady Phillips would like to add specifically kind of the law enforcement, whether it's enforceability or some of the philosophy on the current language related to the current legal weaponry. Jake.
Okay, come on up, Jake. Mr. Flanders, if I could ask you to step aside so that Mr. Kramer can take the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Jake Kramer, Game Warden Captain. Mr. Flanders, thank you for coming this way with your petition. We welcome the opportunity, at least I do welcome the opportunity to discuss this with you, either here or outside of here as well. So you're always welcome. As it relates to the petition, I've done quite a bit of research on this. Also, I've been a firearms instructor for the last 17 years. Have a really good base in firearms knowledge. As a game warden, see the result of velocities, energy transfer to animals through bows, through different weapon systems and such. And there is a big difference in how velocity relates to clean kills, as well as energy level that produces. So I kind of geek out on this stuff. And I do have some support documents that we can follow along. I fully don't expect you to go through all this with me. Okay.
Thank you.
So as those are being handed out, I'll first bring your attention to the definitions and some of the things that law enforcement is going to have issues with. And I'm not presenting a personal opinion in any way. That's not my intention with this. First of all, state statute NRS 202, 253 defines a firearm as a weapon that projects a projectile through the use of explosion or combustion. And that's very specific language, which does not apply to air pressure being forced out, with the use of this kind of weapon. So therefore, this would not be considered a firearm within Nevada. It's also not considered a firearm with the ATF. I've called the ATF. This doesn't apply to them, which would, again, allow it to be used in other circumstances. But Nevada doesn't have a definition of a rifle, which is found throughout Nevada NRS and NAC, throughout the Wildlife Code, which is specific for certain laws, which we'll get into in a moment. But we refer to then 18 USC, USC 291, where the federal definition of a rifle again explains that it is through the energy of an explosive. So again, an air gun is not considered a rifle and is not considered a firearm through either state or federal statutes. Okay, so that brings us to the issues it could create within Nevada. So I just pulled out a few things. This is probably not an exhaustive list, but for example, NRS 503-165, carrying a loaded rifle or shotgun in a vehicle. These are our safety protocols, safety standards that we have for hunter education throughout the state. So if a game warden sees somebody shooting from a roadway or has a loaded gun in a vehicle, loaded rifle in a vehicle, this technically, by the intent of the law, yeah, this would be covered, but we all know that intent is different than what it actually says. And we're held accountable to what the law says. So we're going to need to go through each of these, the entire NRS of wildlife code, to go through and update or change any and all references to firearms, guns, things like that, to accommodate this one specific type of weapon that we're requesting here. The next ones would be, again, county road, shooting from a road, manner of hunting game birds or game mammals. And Mr. Flanders did state that the requirement of 1,000 foot-pounds of energy at 100 yards exists, and that is true within NRS. However, it also states the word rifle, which is again where I'm going back to, that it would not technically be inclusive in that regulation, or that NRS rather. NAC 503-142 refers to the use of a center fire 22 or larger, no larger than a 50 caliber with a total case length of 3 inches. Again, this is a 72 caliber that's being requested, which exceeds that within this general season type of weapon. And we don't have a case length on this because there's no case. Am I correct on that? Okay. Muzzle loaders do have a 45 caliber or larger. So you can go to a 50, 54 caliber on muzzle loaders, but again, that's an explosive type thing, and that's a specific weapon class which has its own regulations. There's only one spot within NRS that defines what a pneumatic gun is, and that's in 202. And it really it's a public safety statute in general and covers paintball guns, things like that, which are don't want to be around school zones, things like that. So we don't really have a great definition of what a pneumatic gun is for the use of hunting in general. With that set aside, I think you can understand the commission that there's some significant roadblocks with allowing the use of an air gun at this point successfully within NRS and NAC for our regulations. There's a lot of things that need to be overcome at this point. With that, moving on, the scope limitations, and this was brought up by, I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, Commissioner Keel, I believe, as far as the range of this type of weapon and the energy downrange. And the word range is really important because it is a very short term or a short distance type of weapon system. Yes, it can go longer, several hundred yards. However, the drop, the trajectory is significant loss on this particular one, which we'll go into in a moment. But I bring that up because this is a general season type weapon system. So it'd be in the firearms general season where it could be used in conjunction with the scope, but most scopes on the market, like a Vortex series or a Leupold, have a total minute of angle on the turret. The range that scope is operational is roughly about 80 minutes of angle, or at 80 MOA, of which if you zero that gun, you've lost half of that because it's going to sit around the 40 mark. So now you have an effective range of field operation of that scope around 40 minutes of angle. And what that means is, depending on how fast or the velocity of your bullet and how heavy that bullet is, the mass is going to determine how many minutes of angle you're going to use within that scope. So you'll see that the effective range on this is really going to be within a 200-yard scenario for this particular gun, based on the data that Mr. Flanders provided us. But with that said, I want to talk more about how animals, or what the killing power is behind this. Because you can be, I kind of relate this way. You can get hit by a train at 1 mile an hour and be just fine, walk away, no problem. But if there's more velocity behind that, there's more mass transferred, and that's going to leave a bigger mark, right? So same thing happens with bullets. You can have big bullets traveling slow, And then you can have bullets that travel faster. And there is a sweet spot in there to where velocity and mass, have a good relationship, but you can have too much velocity as well where it's wasted. It just means nothing at that point in time. But having too little velocity really has an effect to where it doesn't do anything to the animal. So for example, hydraulic and hydrostatic shock. Hydraulic shock happens when the bullet goes in and creates what's called that temporary wound channel. I think we're all familiar with this. It goes in, creates a secondary wound channel, basically explodes the capillaries and such within that wound area, and creates blood loss, significant blood loss quickly, and which leads to a quick death. That temporary wound channel is created based on velocity, and that velocity mark stands around 1,800 feet per second on average, which any of your 243s and anything else, a regular cartridge type rifle is going to achieve those kind of velocities. In fact, muzzle loaders reach those kind of velocities as well. And I've got some data on that as well. So on your package, and again, I don't want to get too deep, okay? But there's a spreadsheet of different weapons that I've created here. And for example, in the top three, the ones that are muzzle loaders, those are in red. Just an example of a 50 caliber, 350 grain bullet has a muzzle velocity of almost 1,800 feet per second and carries that velocity down significantly all the way through the yardage range. And you can see underneath that, there's foot-pounds of energy which are transferred. There are no real standards for foot-pounds of energy on what is ethical or not necessarily ethical, but it's required to kill a big game animal. But I think general ideas are about 700 foot-pounds of energy for a deer and around 1,500 foot-pounds of energy for an elk is kind of an adopted standard nationwide. So you can see a muzzle loader meets those requirements for the range that weapon is designed for. And that goes on. If we go down to the blue in the bottom part of this, you'll see that Mr. Flanders' data that he provided with his 880 grain bullet at 72 caliber provides 784 feet per second at the muzzle. So that is a significant loss of velocity starting out with. And again, if we were to relate that to hydraulic pressure or the secondary wound channels, we're already almost 1,000 foot-pound or 1,000 feet per second short of creating that secondary wound channel. So this animal's not going to die of hydraulic loss or blood loss, at least in a hurry. Going down to foot-pounds of energy, on that same line, there is plenty of energy related as well. But again, it's you're creating a hole, you're not creating a wound that's going to kill that animal quickly. I want to bring your attention though to the scope part, going back to that, and on the trajectory. So again, we're on the 880 grain bullet trajectory at 100 yards is 0 because that's where we zero the rifle. But at only 200 yards, we've lost 58 inches of elevation, which in a scope, that's going to be about 28 minutes of angle. And again, your average scope is going to have a field use range of around 40 at max. So we're already over halfway through our effective range. And then at 300 yards, if somebody was to use that, we have 180-inch drop and 57 minutes of angle used, which is beyond the capacity of that scope, which is again why I say this is a 200-yard and short kind of gun. You can see the trajectory drop significantly past that at 400 yards. If this was to be used, is 370 inches of drop at that point. That's what, 14 feet or more? No, 29 feet, I think. So it is a, yes, it will kill. I question the ability for effectiveness, the type of hunting that Nevadans do, which is not a short range weapon. There's no doubt that this is an effective tool and it's been used throughout other states, and more are adopting it. There's some states, and I'm going to go ahead and actually support your argument here if I can. Okay. There's other states that do allow these more and more. Some standards are 35 calibers or more, but again, we go back to the foot-pounds of energy, and we're only talking 300 foot-pounds at the muzzle, and that drops off pretty quick. So it's up to the commission where they want to go with this. Obviously, I'm just trying to present as much data as possible for you to make your decision. Is there anything that I can explain better that I haven't?
Well, let's see if anyone has questions. Anyone have questions for Captain Kramer? I don't think so. I have a question, and it may not be you, but if we were to approve this, he made the case for hunting privileges. If we were to include this as a weapon class, would the hunt privilege pertain to someone who had lost a privilege?
If the privilege you're referring to, Madam Chair, is felony status, like they've got a felony on the record, not able to have firearms, because this is not a firearm, then yes, this would be allowable for felons to be able to hunt within the general season.
Okay. Okay. Vice Chair Cavilla?
I guess just as a follow-up on that though, right now, somebody with the felony can still hunt archery though. We don't completely.
Absolutely.
That.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, other questions for Captain Kramer? I don't see any.
All
Thank
right, I
you.
appreciate that. And again, Mr. Flanders, here or later, I'd be happy to sit down with you and discuss points of contention that you might have or that we can clarify at any point. All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Do we have questions of anybody else? The department, Mr. Flanders? Pleasure of the commission. Commissioner Minnich?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I definitely, I mean, you know, I've sat up here for a lot of years, and Jake, I'd really like to hear more about this stuff in a different forum. I mean, it really is a different language to me. I mean, I'm just being honest with everybody, and it is of interest to me. I am interested in it. It's a little overwhelming to probably like me trying to teach you guys bird watching, you know, so but I am interested in it. I would like to hear more about this. I got what I needed out of the conversation. The concern with the ability to kill quickly very much concerns me. And I'm having a little deja vu moment. I can't quite remember, but the whole idea of having a weapon, and maybe it's out there, I've just never asked the question, but the idea of allowing weapons that aren't paying into this excise tax, that bothers me. I feel like we've been through this before with something we declined it on. Really, that was one of the major issues, but I kind of don't like that whole idea. You know, it's a thing of pride for sportsmen, and I think it's a standard worth maintaining. And you know that when folks are hunting and buying their guns, buying their bullets, buying that kind of stuff, that they're paying into conservation, and it's a thing of pride. And I think we should uphold that and kind of keep a line on it. So that's where I stand. And so unfortunately, I wouldn't support moving the petition forward today. But I do appreciate you bringing it forward. It has opened the door for some conversation, and I'm definitely wanting to hear, understand ballistics and, you know, that kind of stuff a little bit more for sure.
Okay. Anyone else? Commissioner Weiss?
Yeah, I just thank you for bringing us forward too. It really did kind of open my mind and eyes to all the possibilities and what we are doing or allowing with air rifles and where technology is going. So I don't know if it's a matter of dealing with this in this petition, but it brings to light for me some questions about, like someone mentioned, small game. being allowed to be hunted by air rifles and things already. And that brings me back to whether we need to actually have a discussion at some point about evaluating the NRS and dealing with the things that are already happening and the advancing technologies that are going to be coming out, and kind of look forward to where these things are going and whether or not we need to have these discussions anyway moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Barnes?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I guess when I got the packet and I looked through this, I kind of had my reservations. But I agree with what Commissioner Weiss says about opening my eyes, because I felt the same way. But it raised a lot of questions. In my mind, how are we going to go forward? I mean, is it going to be a whole nother weapon class when we get to, or is it included? And so I still have, I think today probably raised more questions than I had before I even came. So at this point, I don't think I'm ready to move forward with this yet, but it did open my eyes, and something I really had never thought of before. So I'm just not quite ready to go down that road yet, but it is something that darn sure opened my eyes.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Allenberg?
Yeah, I'm definitely not ready to go down this road with this. And when I first got on the commission, we started talking about maximum, the 50 caliber on the upper end of it. But also in my mind, you know, the thought was maybe we should be discussing minimum energy as well. Maybe we need more. The wound loss really bothers me. We account for it, but it's a very large number. And for me, with the elk, they're an incredibly hardy animal, and maybe it takes more energy than what we already apply. So for any kind of big game, I just don't think that it has what it takes to do a quick, humane kill on a regular basis. I mean, there'll always be those circumstances with distance that maybe in these circumstances you could get it done, but not in on a regular hunting situation for me. It just doesn't have enough energy or enough. I mean, there's a lot more than just energy. It's bullet design and everything. And it's just not there for me right now.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I myself as well would just echo the comments of the other commissioners and agree. In looking over a lot of this material, quite frankly, to be honest, I just didn't know what I didn't know, but certainly was educational. Listening this morning or this afternoon and understanding what some of these numbers really mean. Much like Commissioner Holmberg, I don't know if I'm ready to go there just yet, but nonetheless, very informative, and I appreciate you taking the time today.
Okay. And I'm in the same place. I was actually really surprised to read through the number of states that do allow it and the species that they allow it for. So I think maybe with some work and time, you might be able to come back to the commission at some point. I would absolutely recommend you sit down with Captain Kramer or someone else to take a look at this in the future. But at this moment, we can either make a motion to deny or take no action. Correct? Yes. So what is the pleasure of the commission? Commissioner McNinch?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know, do we need to go to public comment?
We did that.
We did it already?
did.
Thank you. Yes, okay. So
Yeah, we did. We did do public. You were out of the room, Mr. Dixon. Sorry.
I just wanted to make a point of clarification that air rifles are not allowed for small game hunting. They're allowed for unprotected animal hunting only.
Okay, thank you.
he squeezed that in. That was masterful. See, so Madam Chair, with that, I would make a motion that we deny the petition.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to deny the petition from Commissioner McNinch. Do I have a second? I have a second by Vice Chair Cavilla. So we have a motion and a second to deny the petition from Mr. David Flanders to allow air rifles to hunt. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. You bet. Thanks for traveling to educate us. Okay, that takes us to agenda item number 27, future commission meetings and commission committee assignments, Secretary Wasley and Chairwoman East for possible action. The next commission meeting is scheduled for August 19 and 20, 2022. The commission will review and discuss potential agenda items for that meeting. The commission may change the date and time and meeting location at this time. The chairwoman may designate and adjust committee assignments and add or dissolve committees as necessary at this time. Any anticipated committee meetings that may occur prior to the next commission meeting may be discussed. So I just want to take a moment before Secretary Wasley jumps in here. It's going to get emotional, but I want to thank you all for allowing me to lead you the last couple of years. It has been such an honor and a privilege for me to do that. But at our next meeting, we'll be electing new leadership. And I'm really excited about where that'll take this commission in the future. So I didn't want to make today all about this, but I just want to thank you all very much for the opportunity. So Secretary Wasley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, the next commission meeting is scheduled for August 19 and 20 in the town of Tonopah. And the first order of business at that meeting will be to elect a new chair and vice chair. So thank you for your leadership and service. The other items I have, standard items for that August meeting include the possibility of a CAB workshop, a WAFWA annual conference report. That conference will occur the second week of July, and hopefully we'll have strong participation from both staff and some members of the commission. It's being held in beautiful Oklahoma City, which I understand is quite nice that time of year. We'll also be reviewing public works contracts. We will be hearing CGR 502, the junior hunt regulation to examine eligibility for juniors for the youth hunt. And then we have the APRP subcommittee meeting and associated report. I believe that concludes the list of items that I presently have.
Okay, I didn't have any additional either.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had one other item, the application hunt draw report, which was historically heard in November and December, but I believe is now conducted in August.
Okay,
Okay, I got a thumbs up from staff.
I got a
Thank you.
thumbs up. Okay, Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tony, did you mention the remaining policies along the way?
I did not.
Okay, I'd daydreaming a little, sorry, but I think we can expect to see the last 2 or 3 of those come back. And I think we had a couple from our last commission meeting. We had a couple on the back burner. And I think the idea with Kaylee is to bring those forward and try to wrap those up. So.
Okay, great.
Excellent.
Okay, super. Okay, so that concludes agenda item 27, and we're going to lose Vice Chair Cavilla here shortly. So we'll move into public comment. Agenda item number 28, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. No action can be taken by the commission at this time. Any item requiring commission action may be scheduled on a future commission agenda. Any public comment in Elko? Nope. Okay, how about on Zoom? Nope. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all. See you in August.